This week on the show, the New England Patriots are Super Bowl bound once again. We break down their AFC Championship win with Adam Jones of 98.5 The Sports Hub. Plus, the Celtics have hit a bit of a skid. What's wrong at the Garden, we'll discuss. All that and more coming up. Calling It starts right now. Insane, the definition, is an action or state of mind outside of normal perception, behavior, or social interaction. Alex Lebowitz, it's not insane anymore because it's become totally normal.
Tom Brady has the ball in his hands down in the fourth quarter. You think he's probably going to come back. It's more likely than not.
This is the Calling It podcast powered by CLNS. My name's Alex Barth. He is Alex Lebowitz. You will have to excuse our voices today after the Patriots winning the AFC Championship game yesterday over the Jacksonville Jaguars. And joining us now to help break down the game from 98.5 The Sports Hub is the one, the only, Adam Jones.
What's going on, boys? How are you?
Doing well.
Always good on a championship Monday. So you were tweeting yesterday during the game, repeatedly, people asking if you were nervous. You kept saying no. You kept saying no. You finally gave a little bit of a hint you were nervous, and that's when the game turned around. Were you actually that confident throughout that game?
What hint did I give that I was nervous?
Somebody said, are you nervous yet? And you said, do the Jaguars wear two-tone helmets? Did I infer that wrong?
No. Well, yeah. So I was saying, not maybe I didn't make that very clear. I was just saying they're still Mickey Mouse. They're still the Jaguars.
Okay.
Like they're still a team. And I can see how that came across. So my mistake for not being clear. Like, hey, do the Jaguars wear two-tone helmets? Yes, they absolutely wear two-tone helmets. So I can see how you would interpret it that way. Not a clear tweet on my end. What I meant is that they're a minor league team. They're Mickey Mouse. And that's what happens to minor league Mickey Mouse teams. Like, I'm not telling you I'm always confident in the Patriots and their comebacks. I've been wrong a million times about them coming back, including the Super Bowl last year. I certainly did not think they were coming back from that game when they were down 28-3 in the fourth quarter. Like, I never thought that for a million years. But this team at home against the Jaguars, I didn't like the situation they were in. I'm sure no one liked the situation they were in. But when you look up and you see 10 minutes on the clock or whatever it is, and Tom Brady's down by 10 points, I feel pretty good about those odds. I've seen it a million times. And no, I really wasn't all that concerned about Jacksonville and Blake Bortles and their lack of playmakers yesterday. I really wasn't.
So if they're Mickey Mouse, which is a great term, by the way, if they're Mickey Mouse, I think our feeling here in the room, me and Lebowitz, we talked about this off the air, is that was the second best team left in the Final Four was Jacksonville. Would you agree with that?
Well, I would have thought it was Minnesota coming into yesterday. So again, I was confident about one thing and right about that. I'm dead wrong about another. I would have told you Minnesota. And I would have told you that Case Keenum was the next best quarterback left. I would have told you that Minnesota has a better defense than Jacksonville. And I still believe that, even watching Philadelphia get carve them up yesterday. So no, I'm not sold that Jacksonville is the second best team in the Final Four. I think Philly is really, really talented outside of their quarterback. And I don't care what Foles did. I know it's against a really good defense, the best defense in the NFL. I just feel like once that thing got away from Minnesota yesterday, Keenum threw a brutal pick. He let the stadium into it. Philly fans are absolute Neanderthals, as you know, and once they get going and once they get liquored up and once they get into it, that's a hostile place. And I think Philly fed off that yesterday. I think Minnesota, shied away from that yesterday. That's not happening on a neutral field in the Super Bowl. I don't think Nick Foles could have done that on the road, never mind in a Super Bowl setting. So, look, I think Philly with Wentz would be a force to be reckoned with. I still think Minnesota's pretty good. Keenum just melted down yesterday, and I wonder if he's still the second quarterback left. I think Jacksonville, I'd probably have fourth on that list out of four teams, even despite how well they played yesterday. And I don't want to say they didn't play well yesterday. I just think they had a good day. I think the Patriots had a so-so day, and I think Jacksonville pulled out just about every stop they could have. They borderline needed to be perfect yesterday to beat the Pats. They weren't, and I think that's a big reason they came up short.
So let's talk about that game yesterday. First thing I want to get your thoughts on is the hit on Gronk. One, do you think that was a dirty hit? And two, will that have any role or impact in his availability for the Super Bowl?
So I'll answer the second one first. I would be very surprised. Concussions, obviously, are different with every player. Gronk is not exactly quick coming back from injuries. So I would factor all of that in. That said, it's the Super Bowl. It's a concussion. I don't want to downplay head injuries and their significance, but that's usually not a 2-week injury, and there could be long-term ramifications from it and things like that. But in terms of him being on the field in 2 weeks, I fully expect it, barring some breaking news here midweek that it's way more significant than we expect. The first thing, I don't think it was a dirty hit. I think it was a penalty. And I don't really know. I would agree with Richard Sherman. I would agree with Barry Church after the game. I don't quite know what they're supposed to do. Do you want him to go low on Gronk like TJ Ward did a few years ago and take out his knees? Everyone called TJ Ward a dirty player. Gronk had said as much. And I think Gronk would much rather be hit where he was than down around the knees and have another, 6, 9, 12-month comeback, whatever it would be. We saw what happened when he went up high and tried to make a play on the ball and lead with his shoulder. It was a penalty, and I think it was rightfully penalized. I'm not calling it a crap penalty or anything like that. I think it was deserved. I'm not sure it was a dirty play. The other option would be do what Marcus Williams did last week against Minnesota and just kind of shy away and just completely avoid the player. And next thing you know, Gronk is off and running. So I think the NFL's in a tricky spot because they want to protect the health of their players, or at least appear like they're protecting the health of their players. Head injuries are a hot button issue, but I just really don't know what a defender can do there. They can't go low. They can't go high. They get the penalty and they knock a player out. You can't shy away from contact. You're giving up a huge play. I don't really think there's a lot of options for him. So I think he probably chose the best option. Take the 15-yard penalty. It was a deserved flag, but nothing more. And unfortunately, that wound up with Gronk laid out and not being able to finish the game.
Again, we're talking to Adam Jones from we're talking to Adam Jones from 98.5, the Sports Hub, recapping yesterday's Patriots win against the Jaguars. Brandon Cooks had a big drop, and if they lose that game, that's probably one of two plays we're talking about, along with the Dion Lewis fumble. But he was the Patriots' leading receiver in terms of yardage, tacked on probably another, 50, 60 yards of penalties. And I know your colleague Jim Murray's kind of leading the anti-Cooks train this morning. But are people taking him for granted? He's top 5 in the league in yards. We see how he draws penalties. Do you think this team is where they are without Brandon Cooks?
Yeah, I think they are where they are without Brandon Cooks. I think he wasn't the most impactful receiver yesterday. I think that was Amendola. Clearly. His first catch was a 31-yard catch.
Hang on, we lost you there for a sec, right when you started answering. I don't know if you want to start again.
Oh, no worries. You want me to just start over again?
Yeah, we literally right when you started talking, it dropped out.
Yep. No, what was how'd you leave it? What was your question? Something about, are they where
they are without Brandon Cooks?
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I think they're where they are without Brandon Cooks. I don't think he was their most impactful receiver yesterday. I think that was Danny Amendola, clearly. Whenever they needed a big play, Amendola was the guy. 3rd and 18, 4th down on their opening drive, touchdowns. He was the more impactful player. So to me, I think they're where they are without Brandon Cooks. Maybe this is my glass half empty way of looking at things, but his first reception of the game, I think the second play of the game for the Patriots, 31-yard catch. And you're like, oh, okay, big play by Brandon Cooks. He was matched up on a linebacker. It's Telvin Smith, who the Patriots picked on all day. Brandon Cooks should make plays on a linebacker. He did make some plays on A.J. Boye on the outside. I'm not saying he did nothing all day. He had the one 18-yard leap and catch on an out on the left sideline. So he made some plays. I wouldn't overstate what he did yesterday. You take away 31 yards on a linebacker, which every receiver should make, and next thing you know, it's 5 catches for 69 yards. I don't think that's a great day. I think that's a solid day. The penalties, I'm not sure he was open on either one. It's not to completely take away from what he did. I just think those were bad penalties by Jacksonville. I don't think Cooks was open. I don't think he's coming down with either catch. So less contact there. There's certainly well-deserved flags, but I think Cooks had a nice day. I don't think he had a great day. I certainly still don't think he was worth a first-round pick. On balance, you want to factor in how bad he was against Tennessee and how decent he was yesterday. I still think he hasn't been anywhere near worth what they gave up. So maybe he'll make me eat my words in the Super Bowl. Maybe. I don't think the Philly corners are anything great, and maybe they're burnable, and maybe Cooks makes some big plays, and I'll wind up eating the words. But today, I really don't feel that way. I think once Jalen Ramsey switched onto him, their best corner, who wasn't even on Cooks for much of the game, once he switched on to him, you didn't hear from Brandon Cooks.
So what about Chris Hogan? Because since he's been back, he's been kind of subpar, hasn't had a massive impact. Do you credit that to him still coming back from injury?
Somewhat, and I think the other part of it was Ramsey was on him. and I think that tells you a lot about how Jacksonville felt about Cooks. It was Ramsey on Hogan. It was Boye, who's still really good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Boye is a Pro Bowl level corner. Ramsey's all pro. And he was on Hogan. He would match up on Gronk for some snaps here and there. And Jacksonville mixed and matched quite a bit. But Ramsey gave a lot of treatment to Hogan in that game. So I think it was a little bit of the Ramsey treatment. But even against Tennessee, Hogan didn't do a lot. I think he's working his way back from injury. I mean, he was so good before the injury. He seems like he has a little bit of a rapport with Brady. Not Amendola, not Edelman, if Edelman were out there, not Gronk. But I think Hogan's a lot better than Cooks with that rapport. Case in point, the touchdown last week against Tennessee. So I can't quite put my finger on it, to be honest. I would guess it's more injury than anything. It was probably a little bit of the Ramsey coverage yesterday. And maybe he's just still not confident coming back from that injury. Maybe some of it's on his psychology and not being fully comfortable. I'm honestly not sure, but it'd be huge if they had him step up in a couple of weeks in Minnesota.
Defensively yesterday, some of the guys who made the biggest plays throughout the game, Ricky Jean-Francois, James Harrison was an animal in the second half. Marquise Flowers had a couple nice plays. Guys that Belichick brought in either late in camp or during the year. You go back to September when this defense was having all the trouble they were. It kind of brings you back, right? That as worried as people were, this is what the Patriots do every year, and that their defense is kind of a living, growing organism.
Yeah, I mean, look, their defense, I think this is only the third time since September or October 1st, rather, whenever that Carolina game was. I think it's only the third time they've given up 20 points. And they gave up 20 on the nose yesterday. And, some of that felt, I don't want to say fluky, but just some of it felt like the Patriots, once they figured out what Jacksonville did, they shut them down, if you will, in game with adjustments and things along those lines. So, yeah, I mean, the defense has gotten better. I don't love a lot of their personnel. I look at it and I feel like their scheme has a lot of holes in it, and I feel like sometimes it's quarterbacks and players who are unable to come up with plays, but that's the scheme from Bill, right? That's the scheme from he and Patricia, and they're going to dare you to beat them in tight windows. And Bortles did it a little bit yesterday. I don't know how many tight window throws he had. He had the one back shoulder throw, I think, to Keelan Cole in the first half. He had a nice throw on their final drive as well to Westbrook that Gilmore gave up before Gilmore had the pass breakup. I don't feel like a lot of Patriots fans remember Gilmore gave up the drive starter to even put the Patriots on their heels on that final drive. But I don't think he made a lot of tight window throws. I think Fournette, I know not everyone thinks running backs are big in the NFL. I'm a big proponent of running backs in today's NFL. I think the main reason Jacksonville went from a good defense a year ago and now a great defense in the Final Four of the AFC Championship game is because of that identity with Fournette on offense. And go back and watch the first half. I mean, when Fournette was on the field, the Patriots expected him to get the ball every time. I think he basically set up the Mercedes Lewis touchdown because the whole defense was focused on him. He ripped off some big plays in the first half. So I think once the Patriots were able to limit Fournette, I think once the Patriots were able to, figure out the play action that Jacksonville wanted to set up and some of the plays they wanted to run to Grant and Bohannon and others, I don't think Jacksonville had a lot of options. And yeah, I think that's more scheme than personnel, but I think Bill's able to coach up some of that personnel, and the later in the year we get, the more coached up they are, the more ready they are.
He is Adam Jones from 98.5, the Sports Hub. You can follow him on Twitter at AdamJones985. You had a real gem, Adam, after the game yesterday. The Garoppolo 44 points, Jacksonville. Where do you come up with this stuff?
So if I'm being 100% honest, I was going to say this on the air tonight. I can't take credit for everything. My wife is actually a 49ers fan. She has been she's been very adamant about Jimmy Garoppolo is better than Tom Brady and all these things, which I don't personally believe. But she had a good zinger, I don't know, early in the game about how Garoppolo would be, kind of making plays and Brady wouldn't. And, if you notice, the Brady stats were better than Garoppolo's against Jacksonville. So it's tongue in cheek. I mean, I don't honestly believe Garoppolo could have done what Brady did yesterday, but, Brady's stats were better than Garoppolo. So what do? You go look at the old score. Oh, look, Garoppolo and the Niners, 44 points against Jacksonville. Oh, look, Brady, only 24 points. And then, a tweet is born. But I'd have to give a lot of credit to my wife because she's a Niners fan. She's been jabbing me and every Patriots fan she knows about Garoppolo quite a bit. So that was mostly her, to be honest.
As you can follow, it's at AdamJones985, whether it's him or his wife running it. Well, that's up for you to decide. Adam, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us.
Of course, boys. Anytime.
Calling It is brought to you by American Broadcast Coaches, training the next generation of media talent and communicators. For more information, check out AmericanBroadcastCoaches.com.
Welcome back to Calling It. Thanks to Adam for joining us. The day after the AFC Championship game, Patriots defeating the Jacksonville Jaguars 24-20. And we talked about it a little bit, but I really want to get into it now. Yes, the Jaguars had an excellent game plan coming in, but that was still a young, inexperienced football team out there yesterday, and it really cost them in the end.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between being a disciplined football team and coming in with a really good game plan. First half, they executed that game plan. And then the second half, it tailed off a little bit. The Patriots made adjustments, and the Jaguars couldn't respond. And that's why they lost that football game. They're still young. We talked about this. They're a young football team. But discipline plays a factor in games like this. And you saw it yesterday. It wasn't the game plan. That's not the reason they lost. It's because the end of the game. It's what happened in that second half specifically.
So let's start, right before the second half. Honestly, it's kind of where it started, where the wheels fell off. Patriots go down. They score a 2-minute drill. And, there's only so much you can do there if you're Jacksonville. Even though you're a good defense, you're going up against the best quarterback. And, if anything, they let him go too quick because there were 55 seconds left on the clock. Jacksonville still had, if not two timeouts. I think they still had all their timeouts at that point.
They had at least two.
They had multiple, and they sat on the ball.
Yeah.
With 55 seconds left. And I get that their offense didn't play great yesterday, even though it looked like it at times. The Patriots' defense was great against the run. Leonard Fournette did not have a big game at all. But that, to me, when you're going in, and the thing the Jags had going for them in that game was their confidence and their swagger and the fact that after beating Pittsburgh, they felt like they had a chance against the Patriots. That choice by Doug Marrone, to me, kind of took a lot of that away heading into the locker room. You gave the Patriots 2 victories in the 2-minute drill. You gave them the score, and in effect, you gave them a stop.
Yeah, I wasn't that against it because what was keeping them in that game was playing simple. They weren't trying to beat themselves. They weren't doing anything outrageous. It was screens. It was running the ball. It was establishing the play action. There weren't really these drop-back plays.
But you can't, with 55 seconds, run some of those plays and just see how far you get down the field?
They could have. I think they were just worried to give Tom Brady the ball back before halftime and potentially give the Patriots the lead or have them within 1, because that right there would really start the unraveling of the Jaguars, in my opinion. I wasn't as against that. They could have gone either way. I don't think it was an awful move because the Patriots, I think they had 2 timeouts left there. So 1 incompletion, 2 runs. Guess what? They get the ball back with 40 seconds, and that's enough time for Tom Brady to get in the field goal range. I wasn't that against that. I think they were sticking to the game plan that they had. And there's so many teams that go up against the Patriots and try to beat them on the big plays. And obviously when you have Blake Bortles, you can't do that. They were sticking to the game plan. They knelt on the ball. And I bet you if they weren't getting the ball back after halftime, they wouldn't have gone that route. But they were. So they're like, okay, we can afford to do this right now.
All right, so you want to talk about sticking to the game plan. And this I did not understand. This is probably the biggest head-scratcher for me. And there's some other things I second-guessed, but I understand why Jacksonville did them. But the first 2 drives of the game, right, when Jacksonville scored, Corey Grant was excellent. The third-string running back, he ended up with 3 catches, 59 yards. He had a couple carries as well, 1 carry. But he was really good. Corey Grant was really good early on. The Patriots did not have an answer, and they just went away from him.
Yeah.
Jacksonville did that. He didn't touch the ball in the second half. They went away from T.J. Yeldon as well, who is a very similar back to Kenyon Drake, who killed the Patriots earlier this year down in Miami. I don't understand why those guys, I don't want to say weren't a part of the game plan because they were early, but why those guys didn't continue to touch the ball. It didn't seem like the Patriots adjusted around those guys. I think it was still there. Maybe Jacksonville was too worried about going to the well one too many times. They didn't want to become predictable, but Corey Grant should be upset today that he didn't get a chance to touch the ball more because he had a chance to go win them that game, and they just didn't give it to him.
Yeah, that didn't make sense to me either. And given I haven't seen the All-22, I don't know what the Patriots' entire adjustment was.
So I did watch a little bit of it last night, and first of all, Grant was barely in the game after his big couple of series early. He was barely in the game, so it's not like there's much they could have done. And it was still pretty much him on either Landon Roberts or Marquise Flowers when he was in the game. And those are favorable matchups.
Yeah. Yeah, so they probably could have gone to it more. Instead, they were trying to force it with Leonard Fournette. The Patriots were stopping the run, which didn't allow the Jaguars really established the play action, and it made Blake Bortles, it forced him to have to make plays. And as we know, he's not a playmaker. He played as well as he could have. But what the Patriots did essentially was take away their run game, and they weren't doing that in the first half. I think not going to Grant in that second half, really after those first few series, was really dumb because it was working for him. But I think the Patriots made a lot of adjustments that prevented them from doing a lot of the stuff that the Jaguars did in that first half.
And we had, this is a cardinal sin among coaches. Out of the timeout, delay a game.
Oh, my God.
That's awful. And then you get to the end of the game, and this is where we disagree. We talked about it a little bit off the air, but third and 18, third and 17, third and 18, after the James Harrison strip sack, and they throw a check down to the backup tight end. They get 4 yards, 4th and 14 from the 48-yard line, 3 timeouts left, $1:55 to go, and they go for it. And I don't understand that call. You have the best defense in football. I know not statistically, but that was the best defense in the NFL this year. You have a shaky at best quarterback. You have all 3 timeouts. Punt the ball, pin the Patriots, play the field position game. You need to put your best unit on. And Brad Norman, one of the best punters in football too. Put your strength on the field in that situation. Let them go win you the game. And in a coach in Doug Marrone, who was criticized and got really run out by the fans of Buffalo for being too conservative. And he was conservative at points, right? You had the kneel down at the end of the half. Yep. You saw them, a check down flea flicker, which I had only used as an analogy prior in my life. I had only used as a metaphor. Oh, they're playing so conservative, they'd check down on a flea flicker. Jacksonville did that. A coach whose entire career has been defined by being conservative. That quarterback in that situation, when you have the number 1 defense in the league, I would have punted the ball. I think they should have punted. You're giving the ball back to Tom Brady either way. Put him back on the goal line. See if you can pin him inside the 5 and take some of their playbook away.
I agree with you to an extent. I think I thought they should have gone for it in that situation. But if you're going to go for it, try to get the first down. Don't do
on third down?
No, on 4th. When you're 4th and 14, you're at like the 45, your opponent's 45. And at that point in the game, Pat's defense was shutting them down.
So can I say this then to set it up?
Yeah.
If you're going to go for it on 4th and you know you're going to go for it on 4th, you need a better call on 3rd.
Yeah.
Like don't get me wrong, if it's even 4th and 8, 4th and 7, go for that. But 4th and 14, you got to set yourself up better on 3rd. If you know you're going for it on 4th, then I wonder maybe there was miscommunication on the sidelines. Maybe not everybody was on the same page. Maybe the offensive coordinator, whose name's escaping me, thought they were punting, and he got very conservative on 3rd down. Try to stop the clock.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with that. I think the play calling in general in that second half was subpar because again they went away with from a lot of the stuff that was working, but specifically with that 4th down. Your defense is not doing that great of a job at that point. Tom Brady's getting in a rhythm, and how often are you going to be, beyond the 50 at this point in the game? I get going for it. The play calling, though, that's where I agree with you 100%. It was abysmal. It was brutal, and that right there is a lot of the reason they lost the game, along with who they had under center.
Right, and if it's a different quarterback. If that's the Patriots in that situation, 4th and 14, you 100% go for it.
Yeah.
But you have to account for Blake Bortles being Blake Bortles, and it wasn't a terrible throw either. They kind of got lucky. It wasn't a bad throw. No. Gilmore just made an outstanding play on the ball. But
and you mentioned it before. If Gilmore does not make that play, that's a touchdown.
Right. If he totally sold out for that ball. But you know what? That team will be back. They'll get a new quarterback. That's an outstanding defense.
One other thing we need to talk about. Conditioning. This is the most undersold part about the Patriots. We saw it last year against the Falcons. We saw it in the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, and we saw it last night. The Jaguars were tired. Even though they dominated time of possession, they were tired late in that 4th quarter, and that is the one constant with the Bill Belichick coach team. They are always conditioned. They're always ready to play deep into the 4th quarter and win deep into the 4th quarter. And no one really, that kind of goes overlooked a lot of the time.
And you know who the best player was on defense in the second half? A 39-year-old.
Yeah.
Is absolutely wild.
Who was up the next day at 6:15 a.m. doing 315 pounds on the incline. the guy's an animal. He's a different breed.
Certainly not on the decline for sure. We'll be back more Calling It right after this.
Calling It is brought to you by American Broadcast Coaches, training the next generation of media talent and communicators. For more information, check out AmericanBroadcastCoaches.com.
I got loyalty inside my DNA. Cocaine quarter piece, got war and peace inside my DNA.
Welcome back to Calling It, powered by CLNS. Check them out on the new website, clnsmedia.com, where they have extensive Celtics coverage. Great with the Celtics. Nick Gelso, the crew down there at the Garden every home game. Cover the road games as well. They haven't had the best time the last couple of weeks. Well, all the Patriots fans, and let's be honest, the Bruins fans, hottest team in hockey, have been having the time of our lives, right? Who's got it better than us? Mm-hmm. Celtics, quietly, is it quietly, have lost 3 in a row?
I think so. I think
quietly,
given what's going on with
qualifier.
the Pats and the Bruins, you got to say it's quiet.
Well, they had the overtime loss to the Pelicans, in which Anthony Davis was just an animal. He had 45 points. He had double-double. Then they lost to the Sixers without Kyrie Irving. He didn't play. And Sunday lost to the Magic despite getting over, I think he had 40 or over 40.
He had 40, yeah.
Kyrie had 40 in his return, but they got blown out by a bad Magic team. So, look, first time they've lost 3 consecutive games this year. Even the best teams go through somewhat of a slump. Are you concerned at all? Jason Tatum hasn't been great in the last 2. He was good against the Pelicans, hasn't been great against the last 2. Did he hit the rookie wall? Are you concerned at all with this team's at?
A little bit. And I'm looking at the box score right now from the Orlando Magic game in which they lost 103-95. You look at the plus-minus for everyone in the starting 5. They're all in the positive.
Okay.
It's the bench that's the problem.
So doesn't that kind of prove the point I've been making for weeks here? That they need to make a move? I am starting to think Gordon Hayward's going to be back. We didn't talk about your prediction before you left.
Yeah.
We know about Gordon Hayward, and we didn't really get much.
Yeah.
But I do think they're planning on him coming back. But I'd still like to see, look, even if you add a piece, that doesn't mean Hayward can't come back. That just means maybe somebody has to sit on the bench more than they like to down the stretch.
The thing is, there's 2 guys that you have to rely on, and they have to play at least decently for you to win. Just going through the numbers, the 2 top bench players for the Celtics,
Yep.
Marcus Smart and Terry Rozier.
Well, Marcus Smart played really well offensively in that Pelicans game.
He didn't in the Magic game. But
What was he in the Magic? I don't know.
He was 1 for 3 from the field, 2 points, minus 11.
Okay,
Terry Rozier, 1 for 9, 0 for 5 from beyond the arc.
Yeah, I feel like they're putting a lot of trust in Rozier to kind of carry this bench, and I think there are better options, better obtainable options out there.
I think Rozier is a fine option. I think Marcus Smart is a great bench player. I just think you need a little bit more depth there.
You need more scoring.
You need more scoring off the bench, and you need more depth. And maybe that comes down to switching up the lineups. Maybe have Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum start the game on the bench and be a 6th man coming in. And you don't want to really mess with the confidence of a young player. I get that. But right now, you're on a skid, and it's clear that the bench needs some type of kick in the ass. And maybe that comes through a trade. I think the more realistic thing that they do is switch up the lineups, and that's something that Brad Stevens is definitely not afraid of doing.
No, we saw last year he used, 40-something different starting lineups last season. Celtics, though, are not the only team that's skidding. The Cavs, 7 of 9 they've lost now? It's ugly.
Yeah.
It's really ugly. They gave up 148 points in a loss to the Thunder the other week. And I said back in October, right, I didn't think this Cavs team was legit. I thought they had fatal flaws, and they got a little hot there in December. But this is the real Cleveland Cavaliers team. That team has serious, deep, systemic flaws. And I know Boston fans want a shot at revenge against them in the Eastern Conference Finals, but it's not going to happen. Not because they can't beat Cleveland. I don't think Cleveland gets to the Eastern Conference Finals. Ooh. Maybe the Celtics get them in an earlier round, but I think the Raptors can beat Cleveland. I think that Washington can beat Cleveland.
Yeah.
I think perhaps in an early round, if they're really clicking, I'm not saying it would happen, I'd probably pick the Cavs, but I wouldn't be shocked if Milwaukee beat Cleveland in a best of 7.
It's clear there are some big problems. It's kind of, I don't know. I just think that team, that roster as is, has just worn out its welcome in Cleveland.
Right.
There's going to be a major change. And right now it's clear that Isaiah Thomas isn't working out. It's clear that LeBron James is getting frustrated as well as the entire roster. And maybe the most evident thing is Tyronn Lue's coaching ability. Is he really the guy?
Well, it's not Tyronn Lue coaching, though. It's LeBron, and we've always
It's
known
LeBron's coaching.
Right. Ty Lue's going to be the fall guy for this, and I'm sure he'll get fired any day now.
Yeah.
It's like David Blatt was. But who do you put – because I have my answer to this. I'm curious yours first. Who do you put the most of the blame on for the Cavs sucking this year?
I think it's LeBron. I think
it
goes back to their best player, and yeah, he is their best player, but I think that his arrogance, and I've been on this train a long time, I think that his arrogance and his, maybe feeling of superiority, which is well earned, I guess, but there's a way to go about it. I think the way he goes about it is so counterproductive.
Well, doesn't it go back to him, their best player, demanding they trade the second best player? If this team has Kyrie right now, they're much better. They're still number one team in the East.
Wait, the best player demanding they trade the second best player?
LeBron demanded they traded Kyrie.
Kyrie demanded they traded Kyrie.
Okay, sorry. So I phrased that wrong. LeBron
pushed him away.
The second best player out of town.
He pushed him away.
Yes, that's a more accurate way to say it. Pardon me. But.
Absolutely. And that's Exhibit A of his leadership style and how at points it can be extremely counterproductive.
And not just that, the Cavs then go, and I don't know how much LeBron had to do with this, but you figure he always has a hand in anything that's going on down there. They go and they trade their second best player and a top 10 player in the league. Could trade him out west. Could have traded him to the Miami Heat, right, where he wouldn't have done much damage. They trade him to their biggest competitor, and in return, they get a guy who LeBron hates in Isaiah Thomas. I don't know how they ever thought that was going to work. I think Isaiah Thomas is going to get traded again before the deadline. I think he's gone. Look, for Cleveland this year, right, winning a title would be nice. But what should be the number one focus of the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Retaining LeBron James.
Right. So if I'm Cleveland, and Cleveland, LeBron and Isaiah don't get along, and it's obvious that they don't, and we've seen kind of, now that we're removed, now that Isaiah isn't winning the Celtics a game every night, we kind of see how he can be a little obnoxious, right? I'm over. I'm done with him. I'm over him. I think the whole Paul Pierce video thing was, he should have just stepped aside from the beginning. I think he got way too big of a head. I talked about that a couple weeks ago on the show. But if I'm Cleveland, you trade the guy LeBron hates. You trade him to Oklahoma City for Carmelo Anthony. You trade him to L.A., to the Clippers, for a guy like a DeAndre Jordan. You bring in one of LeBron's friends, because that's more than winning a title, you have to keep LeBron. And that means getting rid of Isaiah and getting one of LeBron's buddies. Hell, you go see if Chris Bosh can pass a physical and bring him back if you're Cleveland at this point.
Doing?
They have put themselves in such a difficult position by giving into this guy in LeBron and trading Kyrie Irving and making the trade that they did for Kyrie Irving. It's asinine. They are going to sink what could have been a dynasty. And guess what? It's partially LeBron's fault.
You see, this is where I differ with you. I don't think they have any shot at re-signing LeBron James. He's not coming back. I think they realize that.
Don't they still have to do everything they can to keep him?
Yeah, I guess that they should in a way, but I think that they know the ratings on the wall. I think they know that LeBron James is going to go where he wants to go, and that's probably not Cleveland, given the way things have gone the past few years. So they look at this year as an opportunity to win a title, because it might be their last chance for another 5-10 years. So is a priority to keep LeBron James right now or to win an NBA championship? That's the question that the Cavaliers need to face.
And I think it's an easy answer. Just keep LeBron, because that's multiple championships.
Is it realistic, though?
I think even if let's go back to not how we started the show, how we started the second segment. You said the Jaguars should have gone for it even if there was a 10% chance, right? On that 4th and 14?
I guess so, yeah.
You got to go for it with the 10%. Look, there's no Blake Bortles on that. There's no Blake Bortles of a GM. Maybe. That Kyrie trade was bad, actually. I might have to walk back on that. Maybe they punt.
But, hey, who knows? Maybe that Nets pick turns into their next LeBron James. Because they still have that.
That's taking a chance.
They still have,
if that's their plan, that's like the 10th pick in the draft right now.
And Isaiah, like, you're not going to get a lot for him anyway. So maybe, I don't know, maybe you do trade him, because I don't know if he's really helping that team out right now. They could. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they did. I just don't think they're getting anything substantial in return. All
right, well, we'll see next week how it's shaped up with the Cavs and the Celtics. They play again in a couple of weeks, right? It's February 11th is their next game. So we'll talk about that then. Of course, next week, big-time Super Bowl preview. We have some things in the works, so stay tuned. Follow us on Twitter, @CallingItPodcast. Make sure you follow CLNS Media as well, at CLNS Media. You can check them out online at clnsmedia.com. So until next week, look, we've been doing this show just over a year. I started the show last year right after the divisional games. 2 years, 2 Patriots Super Bowl previews. I'm feeling it, and I'm looking just as forward to this one as I was to the last one. Until then, he's Alex Lebowitz. I'm Alex Barth. This has been Calling It, powered by CLNS.